Be a video talking about some updates to the zine project, as well as two different ways you can think about organizing your layouts when you're figuring out what you want to have on each page. Before I kind of get into that, I just want to show you this assignment screen for zine on Icon. Everything is exactly the same, except I have added one change here where it used to be 12 pages including the front and back cover. Now it's 12 pages not including the front and back paper. This is just so you can have an additional couple pages within the zine. When I was kind of working it out on my own, I feel like it makes more sense to have the 12 pages and not include front and back cover. When you're working this way, it means you're essentially going to have two 11 by 17 sheets that you're going to be cutting down long ways to create the 12-page zine. And we'll look at more of that here in a second. I'm going to move this window out of the way just so we can see our screen here in Photoshop. And I'm going to talk about using spectrolite when we're doing the different separation for images. And I think spectrolite is actually really hard to use in this capacity. I would prefer to use Photoshop, but I'm going to show you guys both. So I'm making this sort of hypothetical puppy zine. And the first thing to remember about spectrolite, I'm going to open the spectrolite software here, make sure we can kind of see it in the window, is that here's my puppy zine that's kind of already been done. I'm going to X that out and start over though. When you go to layouts and you go to layout type zine, it's going to give you a lot of different options for zines, like different size papers. But what we're doing is we want to use the sheet size for Ledger, which is the 11 by 17 inch paper. And we can see that there's a couple options. For this project, we're all going to be making the same size zine. And it's going to be the half letter landscape. Now, this doesn't mean your images have to all be landscape. It means that it just is designed in this particular capacity as a landscape orientation. However, you could also think about this half letter landscape zine, think about rotating it 90 degrees clockwise and it opening up from the top rather than the left if you want to have a vertical kind of orientation. The thing about using spectrolite is that within this half letter landscape zine, if you wanted to put a vertical image on this horizontal page, it will not let you unless you put a vertical image on a 8.5 by 5.5 white background that is horizontal, and maybe paste a vertical image within that and then like flatten your later layers so it's essentially a white background with your vertical image in the middle. I'm going to talk more about that, but it's kind of, there's a lot of things to go through to be able to use this layout system in spectrolite properly. The other thing is that every image or text file that goes in each of the four quadrants has to be exactly 5.5 by 8.5, not 5.56. Like literally it has to be exactly 5.5 by 8.5, and each file needs to have the exact same resolution as like 300 dpi. Likewise, they all have to be PDFs, and they have to be one PDF. So if we go to this and take a closer look, say, okay, yeah, we want to do that, you can see there's a little plus button. That doesn't mean that you can add an image into each quadrant. When you click the plus button, you have to add 4 PDFs all at once for it to populate all 4 quadrants. So let's kind of see how that's going to look like really quick. So now that I have my layout set up in the particular orientation I want, let's click the plus button. It's going to ask you to upload a file. I've already made a puppy zine folder, and you can see only the PDFs are highlighted. So if I choose puppy 1, which has already been resized to 5.5 by 8.5 at 300 dpi, it fills one quadrant, and you can see now I cannot click on any other quadrants. It essentially considers this one file to populate all 4 quadrants, and since there was only one image in that file, there's only one image here. So let's cross that out for a second and go back to Photoshop. So here's my puppy file. This is before I resized it. And I'm going to go to image and image size, and you can see it's not correct at all. So I'm going to crop it and make sure it's 8.5 by 5.5. So kind of think about that as you're designing your layouts. and I'm going to go to image, back to image and image size. Now that didn't say like change my image size, that cropping changed my ratio. So that when I type in 5.5, you can see, hold on a second, I need to click this little chain link to make sure the aspect ratios respond to each other. So this time when I type in 5.5, it also says 8.5. I'm going to kind of start over and change my resolution to 300. Sorry, I'm getting confusing myself. I'm changing my resolution to 300. 5.5 by 8.5 is my image size exactly. And I'm going to click OK. And now my little puppy is ready to be saved as a PDF. So I can go to File, Save As, puppy1 PDF. You'll also see that file extension when you resave it as a PDF. When we go to Format, there is a Photoshop PDF that you can click Save, and you're going to get, it says, do you want to replace that? That's fine, because I already have one that I've made earlier. And I just say OK and save through all these different dialog boxes. Yes. So now I have the PDF. Now, I have many other puppy files. Go back to go back to my puppy folder really quick on my desktop. Sorry, my desktop is insane. Okay, so here's the puppy folder, and I have a lot of different puppy images I want to put on a particular set of pages. And so what you have to do is, in order to populate those 4 quadrants, you have to combine 4 PDFs. So I also have, text. This could be your manifesto page that I made in Photoshop, also sized at 5.5 by 8.5. And I've made a combined PDF of essentially just 4 files that are all exactly the same size, including my text file. The other thing is when you combine these 4 files, the order in which you combine them in terms of what image is number 2, what is number 3, that also dictates where they get placed on the page in spectrolite. So this was the combined 4 PDFs. And when I go back to spectrolite, I can click on my plus. There's my combined PDF file, and you can see it will automatically fill each quadrant. So this puppy on the top left was the first one that was in the order of how they combine. That was the first one. The little poodly dog was the second one. The one on the bottom right was the third, and the text was the fourth. So you have to kind of keep in mind too, when you're combining them, what order you want them to go in, because it goes left to right, top to bottom, and then bottom right to bottom left. I find this very confusing. It took me a while to kind of get the hang of making one spread right here. So again, if you wanted to keep a page blank, you would need to actually make a white 8.5 by 5.5 page and insert that into the order of how you're combining things in your PDF. I think some of you guys are also skilled with InDesign. If you would rather use a system in that program that makes more sense for you to create this 4-up 11 by 17 inch document. And once you have the 11 by 17 inch document, if you make it in Photoshop or you make it in InDesign, you can still bring it back into spectrolite and just treat it like a singular image and see how the different colors separate. So but if you want to try it this way, once I have these 4 quadrants filled, I can go send to canvas up there on the top right. And now I'm ready to resofy this, and it'll show me what it looks like on the right. This is the resofy button here. Here's what it looks like. Let's say I only wanted to do black and fluorescent pink, here's what that would look like on the right. So this was essentially now everything's combined on the same sheet, but it was pretty tricky to get to this point actually. And I like using spectrolite because I like seeing, it gives you a kind of close-ish representation of what only using maybe 2 colors might look like for some of your files. There's not a whole lot of flexibility in how you organize your canvas or your layout. So let's close this for a second and go back to Photoshop. So what I did in Photoshop is I made this document that when I went to image and image size, I'm just showing you the size of this. It's 11 by 17 at 300 pixels per inch. I just made a new file that's the exact same size as my paper, and I'm treating this as my like master template that I'm going to use for all the pages. So I would keep my layers unflattened and drag and drop images onto this file to keep the images in the same place. Also, when you take this file and you start to separate it into your different channels, your images are going to be in the same place. You want to work slow and just kind of double check everything so that you're making this process as easy as possible and also as accurate as you can in terms of the way you want things to turn out. So what I did is after I made my 11 by 17 inch new image, I dragged guides 1/4 of an inch all the way around. So when you hover with your mouse over here in a ruler and you click and you hold, you get your guide. Once you release the guide, if you need to drag it around, you can go back up to the move tool at the very top, hover over your guide again, and move it around. Now when I'm moving it, you can see in the flyout menu, which is that little like black bar, like that's showing an increment, it'll tell you when you get to 1/4 of an inch. Now 0.255 is pretty dang close. That's going to be fine. And if you need to do the right hand side of the document, drag a guide all the way over, and 16.75 is essentially your other guide. So I do this for all 4 quadrants because the Rezo takes almost 1/4 of an inch like of a margin. We've seen that in our previous examples. And so this is just a setup essentially gives you a visual guide of like what part of your image is actually going to print. And you can see I've placed a puppy image here, exactly 5.5 by 8.5. Now what's nice about this is the resolution of these doesn't have to be exactly the same. You can also tweak the image size once it's in this bounding box that I've made. I've also made an X and Y axis kind of within the 11 by 17 inch document. So this line that goes across and the line that bisects it in the middle. The one in the middle I used again by using the guide tool. Clicked on a guide and dragged it all the way to 8.5. And then this middle guide, I started at the top and clicked and dragged a guide all the way to 5.5. So now I have the 4 quadrants, the same thing that you see in spectrolite, but I have a little bit more flexibility of how I can fill each of these quadrants, right? So the other thing I did is I went ahead and made cut marks, which can be handy right on that line that I'm creating. So only a little bit of this will print. This will also help with registration. But these are my cut marks to help me trim down the zine. Now, this is going to be really essential because you're going to have some pages that might be pretty blank with only a white space in the middle. So for example, if I want to, I'm going to drag my text file into one of these quadrants. So you can see text for zine. I'm going to click that and just drag it and drop it. I'm going to click in the middle and it's giving me the bounding box you can see of this 5.5 by 8.5 inch text document. I'm just going to align it with the guides I've created and release. And so my cut line, or I should say, with this puppy photo, only part of it is going to be printed, but it'll be easy to see like where that photo starts and stops because it goes all the way to the edge of the box. But if you have a quadrant where you're using text and it doesn't go to the edge, it might be tricky to see that in terms of knowing where to cut. So that's why giving yourself the cut lines right here on the edges in the document is pretty advisable. So I'm going to zoom in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw with the pencil tool my essentially cut marks. What I want to do for this is create a new layer. So down here on the bottom right of the layers panel, I'm going to click new layer. And if the layer doesn't automatically go to the top of your layer stack, go ahead and drag and move that layer to the top. And I'm double clicking on the layer 2 name, and I'm just typing in cut marks so I know what this layer is. So I can come over here to my pencil tool. 6 pixels is fine. You can see in the very top left here, this is where you can change the size of that pencil mark. And you want it to be pretty hard so that it's just like a crisp edge. I'm going to click and hold down shift and just drag, drag a little bit of ways kind of right on that line. And zoom out so you can kind of see what that looks like. And I'm going to do that on all 4 sides so that you're essentially cutting off your margin in an even, consistent way. And then what I can do, you saw I dragged and dropped the puppy manifesto text. That I can decide if I want to bring in other puppy images. Select all of this one that I had resized earlier. Go back to the document, edit and paste it. And I have flexibility of where I want to order it, like where do I want to put it on the canvas. And this is going to be give you a lot more flexibility of how you create the layouts for each page. Again, if you're more comfortable using something like InDesign, by all means do that. So when you kind of craft each side of your by 11 by 17 inch paper, you would save like a separate document in order to then separate that by the different color channels. So like I'm going to save this as my template. So I'll type in template, save it to my computer and my puppy folder. And then like when I'm ready, I accidentally saved it as a PDF. I don't want to do that. I just want to save it as like a Photoshop document. Template, my computer, want to save it as a Photoshop document. Great. So this will be the template that always has all these layers, and I can delete these layers when I'm ready to add more content. But then when I fill this page up, like let's say I wanted to keep one page blank, I can flatten all my layers, file, save as, and I can say like puppy zine sheet 1 or something like that. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to save this as a JPEG, because now from this JPEG image I'm going to start doing all of my color separations like we've done in class before. So now when I go to channels, actually I need to convert it first to a CMYK file. I can go to channels, and then this is when we would go back in and copy and paste over each channel in our layers panel like we did for the 4-color photo separation. But remember, there's no color guidelines with the zine. You can use color in any way you want. Maybe you only want some of your files to have color, and some parts to maybe just have 2 color or something like this. So you have to kind of be pretty strategic about how this is going to work. Like let's go back to our actual PDF or template, I should say, sorry, the template. And let's go back to layers. And let's say that with this particular page, maybe you want Puppy Manifesto to only be in fluorescent pink, and you want like 3 colors on your puppies here. So that means when you're doing your color separations and you're ready to do your fluorescent pink layer, right? When you go over to channels and copy and paste your magenta channel, that's essentially your fluorescent pink, then you would add Puppy Manifesto text to that particular separation. So I know this is kind of deconstructing it, but you kind of got to work that way and figure out like, what do you want each page to be? Do some files have different kind of separations in terms of the colors you want, and what does that order look like in terms of building up the file? And that's why you're going to have 3 in-class sessions to work on this. So Tuesday and Thursday of next week, in addition to the following week, plus you have Sundays that you can come in and work as well. And in addition to coming in at 9 a.m. before class on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So those are the open lab times, are like an hour and a half before our class, and from like 1 to 5 on Sundays. So you will probably need to come in outside of class, but at least this first Tuesday next week, I want to meet with everybody, and we'll just slowly get started so that we can strategize this and make sure you kind of understand how to organize what you want to do. So the next thing I want to talk about really quickly is how you might start to plan out the way you want your zines to look. And the way I did it is this is it all folded up and ready to go, where I've written front cover on it. And these are going to be folded and stapled where you can kind of see my hand there. But what I did with this is I took 2 sheets of 11 by 17 inch paper and I cut them down like longwise so that I'm getting a 5.5 by 17 inch kind of long strip. And then I folded it up. And then I made my, I kind of made like a little paper mock-up. And then I wrote front cover on the top. And then I turned that page. And the first page on the right was page 1. And then I turned that page. So on the back of page 1, you can kind of see it's bleeding through. I wrote page 2. And I did that all the way to 12. And now remember, I've just slightly changed this so the front cover and the back cover don't count as pages. So you should have pages 1 through 12 are the inside ones that you fold. And then you can see they all get folded up and kind of tucked into the whole zine. Here they are sort of laid out, and you can see how it's only 2 pieces of 11 by 17 inch paper cut in half. And again, you're making 12 of these, but I numbered them all out. And the reason I unfolded them and just laid them on the ground is this is just looking at one side of them, right? There's another side that also has numbers on it, page numbers, is to see when I'm starting to build, my template, like where is the front cover going to go? Where is the back cover section going to go? And I've already made that with this little mock-up that I made out of paper. And so I can refer to that and have that with me when I start to build my files in Photoshop or InDesign. I think this is super helpful. I recommend you guys do this so you can kind of see, again, like, is there a strategy is your front cover going to be blank? Maybe it's just going to be black ink. Maybe you're going to put your manifesto text on the back cover, printed on, there. And also, especially this is important if you think there's going to be a page or an area where you're going to need to print on the opposite side of the paper. And that's something that you'll need to give your paper at least a day to dry if you've printed on the front. And also think about how much ink density that paper can really take. Maybe if you have a kind of heavy inked 2 or 3 color image, let's say on this where page 1 is going to be, on the opposite side of that kind of bleeding through, you can see that that's going to be page 2. Maybe you want to have text on the opposite side of page 1. That would be good because text isn't going to really fill up, or it's not very dense with ink, but you just need to plan for that and strategize how you're going to design the next template. And also keep in mind how things are going to essentially, I'm going to go back to this so we can see the way they're laid out. And also see kind of, we'll play around with this too, this kind of the next few days, is how the orientation of the piece of paper you've already printed needs to go into the machine in order that the back side is printed in the right orientation as well. So it can be kind of tricky to strategize this. That's probably what's going to take a lot of time. But again, if you guys haven't already done this, I'd get some 11 by 17 inch sheets of paper, cut them down like this, make yourself a little mock-up, and then just write. For me, like if I would write puppy 1 on page 8 or something, like if you already know what images or text are going to go onto each page, just write that on there so that it'll be easy for you to start to build these templates and save the different files when you begin to separate your color channels. So everybody has their time slot for Tuesday. Remember that you want to come in and just check in with me so we can see how things are going. I can answer any questions as you're beginning to set up your files. And everyone has a 30-minute time slot that first day. It's okay if you don't get that far. Like maybe you've only made 1 or 2 masters, but now you've got a pretty good idea of how to build up the rest of the zine. That's really a great place to be in after Tuesday. And then Thursday we'll regroup again. Same thing will happen. You have your time slot as well as a check-in just real quick to see how things are going. And that's how we're going to proceed with next week. If anybody is starting to set up their files for Tuesday, that's what you kind of want to do before your time slot on Tuesday, because you want to be ready to at least print something on Tuesday. Send me an email. I'm going to be out of town until Sunday, but on Monday I can definitely look through that, help anybody out in terms of like maybe setting up just a few first masters to get you guys started.